Yack.
You're listening to Yack. Yack is the official podcast of the AAF Greater Lehigh Valley Ad Club. Our mission is to inspire creativity and enhance the professional development of the advertising and marketing communities where we live and work. I'm your host, Bill Childs, and I'll talk with artists, designers, writers, directors, photographers, along with those who work in a creative capacity. Our aim here is to serve as a creative resource to help you stay informed, entertained, and above all, inspired. But first, I want to thank ASR Media. We appreciate your support and collaboration. My guest today is someone who I have admired ever since meeting him when he was working at the Valley Forge Convention and Visitors Bureau, headquartered in King of Prussia. 5 minutes into that meeting, I knew Ed and I would become friends. Our first meeting took place at the request of a mutual friend who recommended we meet each other as they felt we had similar outlooks on life and business. Turns out, he was right. Ed grew up in Philadelphia and launched his marketing and advertising career at companies like Converse and Timberland, among others, before landing in the CEO chair at Visit Williamsburg this past summer, where he works with a wide range of tourism partners like Colonial Williamsburg and Busch Gardens. Ed's career journey is fascinating, and he could give a masterclass on leadership and how to inspire a team. We spoke on various topics, including the innovation he participated in during his time working at Converse and Timberland, and how both brands reinvented themselves and, in the process, created cult brands. Ed's a savvy marketer, a consummate leader, and an adjunct professor at St. Joe's University, and an all-around great guy. Ask anyone who's ever worked with him, and you'll hear nothing but praise and admiration for someone who never fails to leave a lasting mark. This interview is jam-packed with solid advice on how to lead a marketing team, how to get people to embrace risk, and what goes into creating a cult brand. We also discuss creativity's role in creating work that cuts through the clutter and drives results. Get ready to be inspired. Here is my Yack with Ed Harris. Ed Harris, welcome to Yack, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Real
How you
excited to
doing,
be
man?
here.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm relatively new here in Williamsburg, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a really unique place, man. And I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're going to talk about that. So let's start where I met you. I met you when you were working at Valley Forge Convention and Visitors Bureau, right? Kind of got to know you, did a lunch. A mutual friend recommended that we meet, right? Gate and Giannini, and we met. And you were very busy at the time, and you gave me some lunch. You gave me a lunch. We had lunch. Told me to send you your resume because I was unemployed at the time, and you were very gracious. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy's like really nice. Could somebody really be that nice, especially at your level? Right? I'm thinking how, and this is what I'm fascinated by, like, because I know it's possible, but so many people, Ed, at your level, you know, they're not like people. They're not really like you're a people person. Like you love people. You're able to get the best out of people. And I've seen you do it, and I've watched you do it. So then Valley Forge Convention and Visitors Bureau, then you end up at Discover Lancaster, which is really cool. I mean, that area is amazing. And I followed your work up there. Now, Colonial Williamsburg. Talk to me about what is happening. You are there now, and what are you there? A week, 2 weeks? You just, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually wrapping up my third week, believe it or not. And
Okay.
Like Valley Forge, like Lancaster, Williamsburg it's a very unique place.
Oh yeah.
If you haven't been here and seen Colonial Williamsburg, this is where the story of our nation started out. This is where the people who were coming up with new ideas that people weren't thinking about in terms of shaping our democracy. So it's got a specialness and an importance to it, which I really like. And in the very short term I've been here, I've had more than one person remind me that 4 out of the first 5 U.S. presidents are from Virginia. As much
really?
as I'd like to talk about Pennsylvania and my roots, they're going to make sure I don't forget about that. But yeah, it's just a special time to be in a role like this, because the nation's 250th birthday is 2026, and there's going to be a big ramp up
Wow.
for that.
Okay, so were you always like a history buff? Is that like kind of you like history, or you just where does that desire come to that you've worked at these places where you're promoting, tourism, the area that you're from? Like what is that about? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, well, my dad would definitely be considered a history buff.
Mm-hmm.
I was not. I've grown to appreciate
Mm-hmm.
our
Yep.
American history,
Yep.
and even just being in a place like Lancaster around a culture like the Amish that
Mm-hmm.
keeps to its traditions
Yeah.
and its heritage, and it's special, and it's very different. But that's what I think I liked about that chapter, was just being able to peek into that simple life and being able to promote that world to everyone else around to come visit. And here, it does go beyond the Colonial Williamsburg piece. We've got Busch Gardens, we have a
Mm.
Great Wolf Lodge, we've got breweries, we have a winery, we've got restaurants, like a lot of tourism
Mm-hmm.
places.
Mm-hmm.
But the historic triangle of Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown is a place that people from all over the world visit to take a peek into where our history as a nation really started out.
Yeah. Well, I would say too, Valley Forge. I mean, you have Washington's Crossing with all that and the encampment back in the day. I think I'm in your kind of situation in that I came to appreciate history after I got out of school and got a little bit older. And then I think then you can really appreciate it. I know for me, as opposed to being in school and learning about these things, it's sometimes they don't connect because it's like you're thinking, well, what does this matter to me? Like, right. And I think that
Right.
yeah, I think when those connections can be made as to like how this is why this matters, it's easier for people to kind of connect with it. So okay, so Valley Forge, Lancaster, Colonial Williamsburg. I want to ask you how you're feeling. I mean, you're in this new environment. Everything's new, right? New space. You just how long were you at Discover Lancaster? 4 years, three
Yeah,
years?
so I had just wrapped up 4 years. I was
Mm.
in Valley Forge for six. So all in 10 years in nonprofit tourism marketing. And I was ready for something fresh,
Yep.
something new. And in taking on this new role, um, it's exciting because I'm asking a lot of questions because I want to make sure we position this destination the best way possible. And that's for me as a career marketer. If you look at my background,
Hmm.
every handful of years, I get the itch to kind of take on a new project or take on a new challenge, whether it's a new brand or a new destination. And I'm like just exhilarated to be getting my hands into a new place and figuring out a way to position it and bring it to life in a whole new exciting way.
Hmm. I guess that's what they've tasked you with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Tourism specifically in 2024, in most places is a little bit soft. There's
Okay.
some, microeconomic conditions at play. Cost of living is certainly a little bit higher. And so, like my colleagues in other destinations around the country, we really have to get creative
Mm.
in telling stories around things like affordability, not the sexiest stories, but reminding people that they can still take a fun trip somewhere and maybe
Hmm.
not break the bank.
Right. Right. Well, that's important. I think I think I like that aspect of what you're talking about when you're starting something new because I share that as well because you just lean in with your curiosity because that's all you have at this point. Like you have to take the information in before you can start having ideas, right? You got to know what's going on. What are we doing? What are we looking to do? What's our mission? All that stuff that you teach in your marketing class at St. Joe's. Which, by the way, you still going to be doing that? Still going to be doing the
I
class?
am. I'm virtual, even though I'm down here in Virginia. I'm still signed up. And
That's
that
awesome.
that class, I know you have a lot of experience teaching, and I think
Hmm.
that keeps my brain fresh, keeps me young.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know if I'll ever give it up, but yeah, I mean, just being able to tell new, fresh stories.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the people earlier. You know, I really do enjoy being around people and picking their
Hmm.
brains and getting to know people, and you know, because great ideas can come from anywhere. And I know you've shared that with me too. It
Hmm.
doesn't always have to be the head of marketing
Nope.
or even somebody in marketing,
Nope.
right? And so I love to get out and do the listening tour and just bounce ideas off of people and,
Hmm.
you know, get different perspectives, because I think you kind of need to spend time in that lab to really come up with something that's going to be fresh and something that's going to stick
Yeah.
versus kind of just sitting in your office all day.
Right. Right. Always a quote that says, when you're talking, you're not learning. When you're listening, you're learning. I like that.
I
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also makes me think of a quote that I like. If you're not growing, you're dying. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you
Yep.
know, I think about that too from a career development standpoint. You know, every couple of years, if somebody out there, you know, is starting to feel the itch to say to themselves, you know, I think I want to go try something new, something
Hmm.
fresh,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
follow that gut feeling.
Yeah. Why not? I just know, I've been around you enough and I've observed you enough with people, with the people that, are on your team. Where is your leadership style come from? Where did you kind of develop that? Because um, you're you don't strike me as a yeller. You're not yelling at people. You're not bludgeoning people into doing things. You're just you get people to well, that's what good leaders do. They get people to follow them and do the things that they need to do, but it's through a lens of collaboration and a like, hey, I'm here to support you. So what's talk to me about your style of leadership? Where's it originate from?
Yeah, you know, I think about that a lot, and this may sound crazy, but I went to a high school that was a very small high school that had round tables versus desks.
Hmm.
And you couldn't hide, so to speak, in the classroom. You kind of had to face everybody and you had to talk. And,
Hmm.
you know, ideas were put out on the table or topics, and everybody contributed. So even at an early age, there was something about that that I think I enjoyed, that style of creativity or that style of
Yep.
learning. And it doesn't get any better for me than being in a room with a bunch of people, putting a topic on the table, and just getting everybody's honest opinion, everybody's input, right? And as a
Hmm.
creative director, you can appreciate, you know, putting everything up on the board. We may
Yep.
not execute all of your ideas,
Yep.
but one person's idea over here might spawn something even better over there. And that I call it the lab, you know, that idea of wrestling with different concepts and ideas and platforms with a group of minds. That's the special sauce for me.
Hmm.
Um, that's why I don't think I could ever do a job where I'm just doing something solo 9 to 5. I need to kind of create with groups of people, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I need to be in a group. And I used to love just being, you know, a marketing coordinator or then a marketing manager.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of really good leaders that kind of showed me the way in some respects. So I've taken different pieces in terms of leadership along the way. But at the end of the day, I think for somebody like me, it's more about listening than talking. You know, I'm not kind of like you said, I'm not the type of person that's going to come into a room and say, all right, this is how we're doing it. You do this, you do that, and let's go. I'm the
Hmm.
type of person that will approach a situation and say, you know, I've got a couple different ideas I want to throw at you. What do you think? Right? And make it collaborative, make it better.
Yeah.
Not this worked 5 years ago at a job I had, so we're going to do it this way and you're going to like it.
Right. Right. Uh-huh.
There's
Yeah.
different styles of management, right? And they're
But
all out there, but mine is definitely not that what's the word? Just
authoritative?
dictator type of thing.
Yeah.
Authoritative, right? That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to get out of my
Yeah.
mouth. But yeah,
Well, that's what I
I'm
love.
just
And I've seen you do it. I've been in rooms, I've watched you do it, and to me, it makes the most sense, right? Because that's how you're going to get buy-in. That's how you're going to build trust. And my God, isn't it fantastic when you don't have to be the one to come up with the idea? When somebody in the team comes up with the idea, to me, that's the magic sauce, because now you got instant buy-in. You're just, you're there. Let's kind of like, especially if you like the idea, you're like, you know what? Let's roll with that. I like that. Let me know what you need from me, but let's develop that. Let's start like that. I love that, because that's where you build the trust. You build the trust within your team. I've been in meetings, Ed, where I've heard people say an idea and the leader at the table just said, "That's ridiculous. That'll never work." Now, what that leader just did was guaranteed that that person will never share another thought again, because you basically embarrassed them in front of like everybody, instead of just, and so many people, leaders struggle, I think, with this, because I really do believe and feel that they get tripped up because they feel that they have to have all the answers because they're the boss or they're leading the team. And in reality, it's the exact opposite. You want to be the person that has the biggest set of ears, that's willing to listen and just let the room let the room kind of develop, let the ideas develop. If you start interjecting your thoughts about why they won't work, you're shutting down innovation. And you don't do that. But I work for people that
great way
do.
to say it.
Yeah.
It's a great way to say it, Bill. And you make me think about a quick story from when I was heading up marketing at Valley Forge.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking for ideas to post on social.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had an idea in a group meeting. They were looking through a book that had a list of silly holidays throughout the year. And one of them was Pi Day, March 14th, 3.14, the crazy mathematical number. And they said, why don't we post on social the best pizza pies on Pi Day? And we kind of looked around at each other and said, yeah, why not? What the heck? Let's try it. Let's put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. We came up with the top 10. And unfortunately, there was a lot of backlash. We got all kinds of comments on Facebook and Instagram, and people saying, how dare you not include my neighborhood pizza joint? How can you have this pizza place and that pizza place in your top 10 and not this place? So we had to kind of regroup quickly on that again as a team and kind of hash it out. What can we do with this backlash? And that's what ultimately wasn't my idea, but that's what spawned in the month of March, which is happening every March, a bracket style tournament of pizza shops that people could vote on at our website to determine a champion and include all the pizza shops so that we didn't just have the 10 in there.
That's awesome.
And those are the types of things that can happen if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to just ask questions, take good notes, bounce ideas off of each other. That's where I think the best creative ideas come from. And that led to YouTube interviews with pizza shop owners, kind of bragging about their pizzas. And at the end of the day, it was just a great lesson in marketing strategy and how, working with your team requires getting their ideas out of them.
Okay. Let's run this the other way. Let's run this through the lens now of a leader who doesn't listen. And I'll tell you what would have happened. There would have been a lot of blame storming going around on whose fault it was, on who didn't think of the idea to do this. There'd be all this tension in the office because they'd know that Ed's upset because this blew up and we all made him look bad. Do you see what I mean? Like, that's not what happened. The exact opposite happened. You went, okay, all right, how can we take this and evolve it and do better? And that's how you do it. That's how you do it. That's how you do creativity. That's how you do leadership. And you didn't stigmatize the mistake, right? No one felt like they had to like quit or fall on the sword or, go, they're going to get a pay cut or a demotion or whatever. You rolled with it because that's just life. That's what happens. I love that. That's a great story. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and you just made me think of, you mentioned the word leadership. And I used to think, as I was kind of climbing the ladder, like a lot of your listening audience, and trying to get to that next tier, how do I get to that next level? And I used to think when I became a manager in marketing the first time, I finally made it. Now everybody's just going to listen to whatever I said because I know everything. And when I get to director, it's about what I have to say. And I learned over time that as you get to that next level in your career, actually the work is just beginning.
Yeah.
And you've got to listen even more as a leader the higher up you go. It's not about just because I have the most experience in the
Yep.
room, we're going to do everything I say.
Yep.
And that's not the same approach everyone uses,
Mm-mm.
but that's sort of become the way I go about work, is that the work really just is beginning as you ascend to new levels, because now you have more responsibility. But that doesn't mean you could be a dictator and Mr. Know-it-all guy,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
really you really got to just get in the weeds, maybe even more with the people that are a couple tiers below you. So,
Yeah.
in my opinion, the higher up you go, you've got to be a great listener. That's really the heart of it, I think.
I agree. And I think that with how you lead, I think people just naturally gravitate to you. And I think the reason that is the biggest reason is that you don't lead with your ego. You know what I mean? You're coming at any situation kind of with like open arms and saying like, I don't know how maybe I might have some ideas on this, but what do you got? What do you have? And then I love how when you start throwing ideas into other brains, that's when an idea in another brain can actually come up with something no one thought of. And then you throw it back in. It just becomes this almost play, right? Like if you can approach idea generating with a level of play to it, you're gonna be fine. And you don't stigmatize the mistakes, which you don't. You don't make anyone feel bad for sharing a thought that might not, if you hear a thought that might not be like something, you don't have to call it out. You just let them say it, because it's just you know what I'm saying? It's just a brainstorm session.
Exactly.
You don't have to make them an example of like, well, we tried that last year, don't you remember, and that didn't work. Like, okay, you're just shutting down innovation. So, but I love that. I want to talk about this quick idea because I know you love good ideas. Saw this the other day. This kind of blew my mind, and I can't stop thinking about it. I saw it online. It's a campaign for Gold Peak tea. It's iced tea. Wait till you
Okay.
hear this. This is
Yeah,
going to blow
sure.
your mind. Gold Peak iced tea. They have found a way to take the cap off of the gold tea, right? You pour it in, you pour tea into the cap, and then you put the
Okay.
lid on, and then you take that with this liquid, golden tea, gold peak tea, and you attach that to the back of your iPhone's camera, and you take photographs that look like magic hour
Wow.
from tea.
Brilliant.
Is brilliant, right? Because now I want to go take those photos. It's like you can take golden hour photos anywhere. And they screw the cap on, and they show the tea inside, and it's like that amber color. And then you know what golden hour is, or magic hour, every night, when the light is going down and
Right.
it's so beautiful, you can shoot photos through the gold tea, and turn any photo into into a magic hour photo.
I love it. And
That is
it's I love
brilliant.
that. And it goes along with what you're saying. I mean, that idea maybe doesn't get executed if it gets shot down, right? If
Mhm.
somebody comes with that idea, and there could be a lot of people who could say, I don't know, I don't think it'll work. It's too complicated to pull off, and I
Mhm.
just don't. Nah,
Mhm.
let's not do that, right? There's a ton of people out
Sure.
there
Sure.
like that, and
Yeah.
it actually makes me think about um, again, another example when I was at Valley Forge, where those 6 years when I moved into tourism, having come out of working in marketing roles in the very fast-paced sneaker and apparel world,
Yeah.
I think that my chapter at Valley Forge was some of our team's best work. And it was during that chapter that another crazy idea someone had, that I kind of just said, yeah, let's look into it, let's see if we can do it. And that was, no one in the industry, in the tourism
Mhm.
industry, excuse me, at that point, had a mascot.
Mm.
And we decided we're going to have a mascot for our organization. And
Okay.
we started talking about different animals that might be good and represent Valley Forge. And we ultimately landed on a fox.
Mm.
And then we had to come up with a name. And next thing you know, we have a legitimate fox costume, and they're wearing the colonial garb that they would have worn,
Oh yeah, right, right. I remember
or the
that.
Revolutionary War uniforms that they would have worn with George Washington. And now all of a sudden we give this Fox mascot an edge. We're creating YouTube videos. We're posting silly stuff that the mascot's doing on
Hmm.
social. And it kind of took on a life of its own, so much so that we start being invited to events with people like the Philly Fanatic and Gritty
Mm,
from the Flyers and other
mm,
mascots, which opened up our marketing to a whole new audience. So you never really know, if you don't plant some seeds and
hmm.
water them, see where they go. Just like the Gold Peak example, that could have been killed,
Yeah.
but somebody, some smart person
Mhm.
believed in that idea when it was presented to them, and they said, "Let's go for it."
Yeah. Well, here's what makes me think about like why it's going to work. Because if I go by the Gold Peak, right, and I do the cap thing and I take the photos and they're really cool, guess what I have in my hand? A bottle of Gold Peak that I'm probably going to
Right.
try and drink, right? I'm going to drink it and go.
Exactly.
Now I'm just spitballing here, but I'm thinking, hey, this is pretty good. I like this. Now they got a new fan, all because of the cap, right? So now, like, you have to know that that's what's going to happen, right? Most people aren't going to go, yeah, I just wanted to see the photo and toss the tea away, but most are probably going to try it, and if they try it and like it, now they've created a new customer. It's just such a cool idea. But I think what I'm hearing from what I think does set you apart too, is besides the fact that you don't lead with your ego, is that you're willing to give ideas a try. That's also something that most people aren't comfortable with because from my presentations that I used to do in your class, remember the graphic when I said this is the best graphic that shows what creativity is, A, and then it's this big squiggly line
I
and then
love it. I love that.
it's
Yeah.
so true, right? It's like you have to be willing to walk that crazy road. And a lot of times you're in you have to embrace ambiguity. You're in uncharted territory. You don't know if this is going to work. You didn't know if the Fox thing was going to work. You could have had
Right.
investment in the costume, maybe 10 grand. Those things aren't cheap. And
Right.
then
Yeah, they're not cheap.
and then
Yeah.
you find that no one's embracing it, and then it's just kind of like it's dying on the vine, and like you have to, but it didn't happen. Like what's cool is then once you did the idea, and this is why I love about people who are willing to take chances on ideas. Once you do the idea and it's out there, then you start to get all these other ideas because the idea is alive. You made it come alive. You know what I mean? Now you start thinking like, hey,
Yeah.
wait, we could go to the Flyers, we could go to the Phillies, like, but maybe someone didn't think about that while it was being developed. You see what I mean? And the only way those ideas
Exactly.
happen is because somebody took a chance, somebody took a risk, right? So that's again, you're just talking about how the way this stuff should all really be when you're doing idea generating or leading team. It's something I wanted to ask you too, Ed. I feel I got to know your team up in Lancaster. What a bunch of amazing people, because I did the keynote for the marketing summit, right?
Yes, that you did a great keynote. That was awesome. Yes.
To a person, they're such good, solid, decent people that you just want to like do good things for and with. So my question is, how do you say goodbye to that? How do you say
Yeah.
goodbye to them? Like that's got to be like a difficult moment, I would imagine.
It is absolutely. In a lot of the jobs that I've left over the years,
Hmm.
there's sort of a theme. There wasn't like a very specific reason that I wanted to run away from, which sometimes people do. In
Hmm.
my case, it was really either just something bigger in terms of an opportunity or
Yep.
a challenge or something that piqued my curiosity. But yeah, in Lancaster, it's a special place. I mean, the
Hmm.
community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, very humble, very down to earth people.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful place with rolling green hills, amazing farm to table restaurants, and
Hmm.
there's a really cool vibe in Lancaster City. It has so much going for it. And it was very, very hard to say goodbye to that team because the team believed in me too. They bought into my
Yeah.
style,
Hmm.
and we did some really fun campaigns together. And to be honest with you, sometimes you're gonna listen and put some ideas out there that aren't gonna work, and that's okay,
Hmm.
right? And in this world we're in now of, AI and augmented reality and virtual reality and influencers. There's all these new emerging things people are talking about and tools that you can use. And my advice would be to experiment with them.
Yeah.
Several years ago, if you know of Snapchat spectacles, most people don't remember them because those glasses that could record video
Oh
in
yeah.
directly into your Snapchat were only sold in New York and Los Angeles. And we had an agency partner at the time who said, "Hey, do you want to do something with these Snapchat spectacles, sunglasses? Like maybe there's a way you could use them in a campaign." And so our team looked at these glasses and we said, "Well, let's film some fun experiences around the area using these
Yeah.
glasses, and let's
Yeah.
do a campaign." And the glasses themselves never really stuck with pop culture,
Okay.
but that content got the attention of magazines, newspapers, some radio shows who caught a glimpse of it and were curious and they wanted to know a little bit about it. So there's something to be said for that first mover advantage, which is
Mm-hmm.
really just a marketing textbook term. But when we're talking about first mover advantage, it's all about trying something new and being the first to do it. And if you can do that from time to time and you shoot a press release out about it, writers want to talk about what's new. That's what they care about. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to write about people that are copying what other people are doing.
Right.
So leave some space for some crazy out of the box new stuff that none of your competitors are doing.
I love that. Well, how do you tell somebody, like, what advice do you give somebody that, is in that position to kind of greenlight those ideas, but they're afraid. They're afraid of failing, afraid of looking bad, afraid, of not having it succeed. Like, what do you tell those people? Like, seriously, like what can you tell them?
Now that I'm in my sort of second chapter as a CEO, I definitely look at things a little bit differently than when I was getting to do marketing 24/7. What I mean by that is if you decide to choose a leadership path towards like a CEO job, you're going to have a somewhat of a handle on the company's finances and other things. So when I think about budgeting, I think it's important for every marketer to have sort of like a slush fund in your marketing department where you carve out a certain amount of dollars to take chances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they're working, you can always boost them even more with more dollars, but you should carve out a line item in your budget that just says, what if, what's new, and just test some stuff. I really believe in, test and control. You don't have to spend a ton of money on a new idea. You
That's
can
right.
kind of let it marinate, see how people respond to it, and so that's kind of how I think about that when you ask me that question is I immediately go to, you know, it's really about the investment level. I think you can try a lot of new things and throw a lot of darts toward the board, but they're not all going to stick, and that's okay.
Agreed. That is okay. That's how you succeed, actually. Trying things. Some work, some fail. The ones that work, you try to figure out how to do those again or evolve them. And yeah. So
And
I
then
know
and you
that,
talk about that in your book too,
yeah, yeah, thank you. I know that you spent
which I
time at
got to tell you,
Converse.
I finally got around to reading your book, by the way, and it was awesome.
Well,
I've
yeah.
shared it with a couple people already, and I'll do a shameless plug for you on Child's Play. Great name, great book.
Thanks, man. I love the chapter with us about the pumpkin pie. I really do love that chapter.
Yeah, you can't give that away on the podcast. You got to buy the book to hear that one.
It's a great story. So I know that you worked at Converse, and I am a huge fan of the brand. So talk to me about a little bit about your time at Converse, what you did, what you enjoyed about it, and ultimately, what was it that lured you away? Was it Valley Forge that took you away from Converse?
Well, at the time, I actually had moved north. I kept moving north. I was born and raised in Philly, made my way up to Converse. Then I went to the Timberland company,
Oh,
which sells, waterproof boots and jackets. That was sort of my chapter after Converse, but Converse was amazing. I
mm,
mean, talk about a fun brand to work on that's a combination of punk rock and old school sports and just creativity. And
Hmm.
what was great about that chapter was, again, like I was kind of just talking about, we were testing a lot of new things in large part because I joined the Converse brand shortly after it was bought out of bankruptcy by Nike Inc. And Nike Inc. wanted us to do whatever we could to try to make it popular in high schools again, because at the time, this is going to age me a little bit. This is 2004, 2005.
Hmm.
When I decided to go to Converse, I had some of my friends saying, "You're joking, right? Like our parents wore Converse. Nobody wears Converse. Why are you going there?" And over time, through some really interesting, partnerships with MTV, which was really big at the time with music videos and product placement in movies like the Batman Begins movie, where we have placement on Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan's film, and I, Robot with Will Smith, and
Hmm.
the Sandlot baseball movie. I mean, we were putting Converse product in front of a lot of audiences through movie deals and MTV. And me doing that job with that group was one of the most fun marketing chapters anybody could have, because you've got the keys to this brand that you're trying to, bring back out of the graveyard
Hmm.
and try to get a new generation of people to buy it. And it was all about creativity. I got to give credit to the designers they brought in to Boston from all over the country
Yeah.
to just go nuts with different fabrics and patterns and spinning shoes and different materials, colors. It was just amazing creativity. And Nike believed that if we started putting out Converse sneakers that were never made before, that were not basic anymore, that maybe we had a shot. And today, looking back on, I'm proud that I was part of sort of that
Yeah, that's a bold
initial run
swing.
for Converse, because I actually see high school kids walking around in Chuck Taylors. And there are a lot of people that didn't think that
Mm.
could ever happen. So a lot of it had to do with marketing strategy. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
rambling on, but does that help
Yeah,
answer your
no, and
question?
were you? I saw the ones pair in the store. They were high top boots made with
Yeah,
canvas. Like
yeah.
so, the high top just continued all the way up. There must have been like 47 lace holes on each on the one side. That was crazy. Yeah. So you
Yeah, I mean
kind of
they were doing product extensions is what they would refer to that as in their industry, and just try, just like I go back to this lab, just cooking up some new ideas, some new product ideas, putting it out there and measuring it. But that was even before social media,
yeah.
which is
Right.
interesting
Right.
because the team I was on at Converse at the time, we were playing with user generated content before it became a really big thing. In fact, we were asking people through magazine ads to submit artwork that they had done of different illustrations and just general creativity that we
Hmm.
would then, if it was good, turn around and use in our own advertising. It was this sort of inviting people into the brand to take part in it, which was really cool to
That is
see.
very cool.
And there's lots of examples of that now, but just to see that, the brand had the courage to do something radical, like
Mhm.
let the consumer submit some stuff and give them some credit in the advertising was kind of a big deal at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
That's
now,
cool.
you see it a lot where you can design your own Nike
Oh yeah.
sneakers, you can, collaborate on other things, and it really brings the consumer in.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the one commercial that you did, you were a part of. I mean, it was jaw dropping. I just loved it so much. It was the one with the song from Willy Wonka, "Come with Me,"
Oh yeah, yeah.
Imagination.
Um,
Um, Done
yes,
like
man, yes.
that was just like, whoa, where did the idea for that come about? Like where it was like shots of Lancaster and people doing things, but that music was so it was a different version. It was like a haunting version. And it made me immediately want to just drive to Lancaster and go hang out just because of that song.
Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, the tonality is such a big piece of marketing.
Hmm.
Picking that right. song is going to give it a certain vibe, right?
Yep.
And, those little details can make a huge difference. But, you know, the the person actually who came up with that concept was someone that I had a chance to work with very closely at Valley Forge, a guy named Joe Tasnik. If you're listening out there, Joe, it's awesome to hear that Bill appreciated that video, because it was definitely one of his best videos. I think he'd agree that he's done it, because
Yeah.
it wove in this really cool song to it, and the tempo and all the visuals of cool stuff to do. It just really worked. And you don't
Yeah.
always get that. But that one definitely hit the mark. It was the right song, the right
Yeah.
attitude for the visuals that were being shown. And that's a real skill that creative directors like you, I'm sure, can appreciate.
Well, I got to meet him and I got to tell him that how much I liked the spot when you were down at Valley
Oh,
Forge.
awesome.
So that just
Awesome.
yeah, I love that. So okay, Converse, Timberland. And you said you kind of really enjoyed working at Converse and kind of like what you were able to kind of accomplish with that brand, like with those other types of things.
Absolutely.
That's really neat. I love that. Was
Yeah,
it?
and I was so lucky, Bill. I mean, I look back on some of the career stops I've made, and I bet a lot of your audience can say the
Mhm.
same thing. Having a good boss or a good mentor goes such a long way. And when I was at Converse, um, I was working with two gentlemen. One guy's name is Eric Soderstrom. The other guy's name is Dave Maddox. And these guys, at the time, they seemed like they were the older, more experienced guys, and they were probably early 30s at that point. I was,
Mhm.
24, 25 years old, but I looked up to these guys
Right.
because Eric had come from running marketing at, I think, Nintendo and Coca-Cola. Now he was coming into Converse, and he could just tell stories about lots of different ways to market a
Hmm.
product. And then Dave Maddox today, he's actually um, the CMO for a footwear brand called Cole Haan, based in New York City. But
Sure.
these guys, when I was, in brainstorming sessions with people that have had like some really interesting experience like that, I think really opened my eyes, and I can appreciate it more now, to just
Hmm.
that collaborative spirit of checking your ego at the door. I mean, these guys had, in my mind at the time, were the best of the best marketers, and Nike brought them in to help resurrect this Converse brand. And I'm actually in a room talking with these guys.
I know it's
But
awesome.
they kind of took me under their wing, and I think any leader needs to do that. Be humble, right? Remember, that you had to come up at one point. Don't be a jerk, right?
100%. So what are some of your favorite brands? What are some brands that like you look up to that you like? Could be, that you
Oh man.
use personally or just that you look at that you admire from afar. It's from that people
Yeah,
brands that are
that's
doing marketing correctly. Let's call it that. In your opinion.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely a sports guy.
Okay.
So I definitely can appreciate seeing some of the strategy that I know Nike uses. Nike is so smart, not only in terms of the products that they make, but what most people don't see in a, multi-billion dollar global brand like Nike is the amount of time and money they spend talking to the consumer.
Mm,
They do a very unusual amount of focus groups to make sure that when that shoe goes on the shelf, it's going to sell.
right.
And they get it. Other brands that are in their space, they just don't have the capital to
Mm,
do an extensive amount of research to really know it's going to be successful. And the average person has no idea how
right.
much is going on behind the scenes there. And the other thing that they do really well is, and I think a lot of people already know this, but they have a division that is constantly looking at pop culture and who is the next artist coming up? Who's the next, athlete, whether it's Travis Scott, whether it's LeBron James,
Hmm.
fill in
Hmm.
the blank. I mean, the
Yeah.
roster of musicians and, hip hop stars and athletes, there's a real science to that. And, you know, that's basically another way of looking at influencers, right?
Right.
You can hire someone to position your product, Nike's brilliant at that. So I would say Nike's probably a brand I do
Okay.
look at a lot.
Okay.
I look at brands like even like Pottery Barn, like things outside of the
Mm-hmm.
space that I've been in.
Sure.
I look at what some of my colleagues are doing in the tourism industry.
Mm-hmm.
I look at
Who do you like?
like Visit Miami and
Yeah.
Las Vegas,
Okay.
and Chicago, and I look at the big cities, and what they're doing to try to connect with visitors. And they're my competition too, but I think it's really important to take the time to look at your competition every now and then, right?
Absolutely. Sure.
You don't want
Yeah.
to you don't want to follow them, but maybe there's
Mm-mm.
something they're doing that you can reinterpret that works for your brand.
Sure. Sure.
But man, you stumped me. I'll have to come back to you
All
at
right.
some
We'll put a
point.
pin in that one.
I
How about this one?
Yeah.
You have one media. That's it. So pick it well. What are you picking? Tell me what give me I want to know what media do you like if you could only use one. You could only use one. What would you use?
Oh man.
I know what I would say, but I don't want to influence you.
Well,
What
see,
I would do.
I immediately probably go to social media, but that's
Okay.
broad, or Instagram, because I'm very visual. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of funny when you think about the progression of Facebook and then Instagram and then TikTok. As a culture, we don't really take any time to sit down and really read much anymore. It's all about the pictures, it's
I
all
know.
about the short videos.
I
Our
know.
culture has changed, right?
Yeah.
And as marketers, we got to embrace it because
Mhm.
that's what the people want. So
You
I
got to play there.
think spending money there is never a bad thing, but even beneath all of that, which I certainly wouldn't call myself an expert in, but
Hmm.
things like search engine optimization, right? Paid search, all the techie stuff, all the coding and all that stuff
Yeah.
going on behind all these channels and in Google, like spending money there is probably wise too.
Hmm. Sure.
I know that's not the sexy answer,
No,
but
but
you
that's where
know,
the
I
eyeballs are. You got to go where the
but
eyeballs
yeah,
are.
and I don't think I could say just one, but also in that top five, I'd probably put influencers.
Okay.
They're not always the easiest to work with, and everybody's an influencer now, but I just
Hmm.
feel like they really do get the attention of a lot of people. And if you can find the right influencer that
Yeah.
measures up to what you're selling, it can go a long way. We're talking about that right now
Hmm.
in a place like Williamsburg, Virginia, where we want to find influencers who are willing to spend a weekend here and talk about how they can have an amazing trip in what most people see as an expensive or very premium trip at an affordable price. And how can we tell that story through influencers? So sometimes you can get lots of different types of messages out there by letting other people tell it for you.
Absolutely.
So those are the types of things we're looking at
I
too.
think that's smart.
But I got to ask you,
Consumers really are in charge of the brands anymore. I mean, the brands aren't in charge of the brands. You know what I mean? To your point with Nike, it's like they're looking at those are the people that are going to buy the stuff. So it's like, what do you want? What should we be looking at? And they're smart to do that. They really are.
exactly.
Because if the consumers, this is to my point earlier, like in being in the meetings, when you kind of take someone else's idea and let them run with it, and you're going to support them, you have that buy-in and you have that trust. That's what they're doing. They're creating brand loyalty, brand trust by bringing people in and saying, "What do you think? What do you think of this shoe? What do you think of this?" It's smart. It's smart. I
I was going to add
personally
one more. Go. Yeah, you
no
go
no go
first.
ahead, go ahead. You go ahead because I
Well,
asked you.
no, another answer I would give that I've been reading more about that's
Mhm.
more emerging and that I think over the next couple of years will garner even more attention is this whole voice search
Oh yeah.
optimization. This idea that, oh man, that's a lot of work to actually type words into a Google search. I'm just going to push a button and say something. It's amazing. And again, culturally, we're just evolving, and these
Yeah.
technology tools are just they're rapidly evolving. Like we're just growing leaps and bounds,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in this technology space. So I think that's another one that marketers need to be aware of. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to just say if I had to, you gave me one media to like kind of promote something and then just one, I would say outdoor, because
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
outdoor is the number one driver of search. So I get a double
Is
bang
that
there.
right?
Yeah, that's right. And they were also, I followed this. They were year over year, other than take digital out of the realm, but in terms of other traditional media, they're the one media that's been growing year over year. They have year over year growth, even all through COVID, because they people weren't like it just, yeah, that's what I would do. I would run outdoor, and then hope with the hopes of driving to them to search and seek me out online. Yeah. I
Well,
wanted to ask you, go ahead.
I was just going to say your portfolio in that space is outstanding. The stuff that you've done that I've seen over the years creates that stopping power. But
Well,
there's a lot of bad billboards out there. But I think, in tourism where I work every day,
yep.
we're looking at that too, because more and more people are taking road trips because it's so expensive to get on a plane. And so if they're on the road more, we got to be in front of them there. And so I think you got to have your ear to the ground
Yep.
in terms of, what's happening out there in the culture and the economy that might dictate some of those types of decisions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and to your point, I think, it can't just be a board that you put up that doesn't say anything, right? That's just kind of, you said it earlier in the podcast, is like you can't forget the creativity. That's the secret sauce. If you can do it in a creative way, that's what gets people to look at it, because it's not normal. It's like the words or the phrasings or the imagery, or whether you're using extensions, like that's what stops them. And remember when I said about the gold peak, like if they're going to have it in their hand, right? Well, I'm going to drink this, I'm going to just see what it tastes like, right? So you're getting them to do that. Where, with outdoor, um, and you have a compelling, powerful message, you get people sharing it, right? Taking pictures of it and sharing it. And then also, if it's compelling enough, they're going to want to like learn more. So then they do their own search, and now that board did its job for that person. And that's really kind of, that's another thing I think of too, is Ed, that I wanted to ask you about. How did you manage to survive, like, tourism through COVID? Like, when nobody could go anywhere. Like, it was just kind of, we're all just staying home now. We'll see you in a couple months. Like, what was that like for you? That couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, that's when I initially showed up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And,
You were the right
you
man for the
know,
job.
well, one of the things, and I give all the credit to the board of directors who were
Yep.
saying, let's keep spending. Everybody else is pulling back
Yep.
right now, but let's
Hmm.
keep spending on marketing and let's
That's
do
smart.
something creative. And what we did was we just said, we're here when you're ready, and
Mm.
travel safe. That was our message, because we
Yeah.
knew we had a product. We had a product that was really, in large part, outdoors, where you could hike, bike.
Yep.
Everything's very spread out in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful place to visit, and there's just a lot to do outside, and that's what people were looking for. And so some of the people came and did a road trip from New York or DC or Baltimore or Philly right away. Some waited. But the
Yep.
point was, we were still beating that drum when a lot of people just cut marketing.
Yeah.
They said, marketing's got to go. We got to wait until we get through this. And I think we rebounded a little faster because we were more top of mind when each individual person felt more comfortable taking a trip.
Yeah. Well, and this is another thing that comes up. All the best advertising in the world, isn't going to help a bad product. I mean, it'll help a bad product fail faster, but like, Lancaster was a great product. So it was a matter of just reminding people we're still here. You can come out here, lots of open space, so you can kind of spread out, right? But I like that idea, or of them not pulling back on the marketing, because that's how you steal market share.
Yeah, and one of the fun tactics that we did during that time period, speaking of out of home on wheels with a company called Carver Ties,
Mm-hmm.
they they wanted to put our travel safe message on a fleet of cars driving around some of our feeder market cities. But what was crazy and unique about it was they created these giant oversized masks that could be stretched out over the hood of these cars to reinforce
Yep.
travel safe
Yep.
messages. And we got a lot of interesting blog posts and news articles about these cars that had masks on the front of them with our branding on the sides of these cars. And it was just something fun, but it garnered a lot of attention.
That's awesome. So as we start to get near the end here, I'm going to do some rapid fire questioning.
Okay.
What's a piece of advice that you got that has stayed with you throughout the years?
I would say face your fears, live your dreams. That is what it's all about to me. Take a chance, right? It's like that old story of the Velveteen Rabbit,
Yeah.
right? Be real, take a chance, and be willing to fail, right? Be willing to take on new jobs, be willing to speak up in a meeting, put an idea out on the table, be willing to listen to somebody younger and take their idea and share it with everybody else and run with it.
That's awesome.
That's more than a couple words. But.
No, but that's good though. I like that. I like that. What would something be that you kind of know now, but you wish you would have known when you were younger?
Everybody has bad days and frustration. Nobody's perfect, right?
Yep.
And that's where the listening piece comes into play as a leader. If you take the time to listen to your team during the ups and the downs, you're going to build trust, you're going to build respect, and that over time is going to facilitate bigger ideas. That it's all about trust, right?
Yeah.
Trust in your manager, trust that your idea might be good enough. Like all of those things, I would say just realizing that, don't put so much pressure on yourself. You got to be creative. And if you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, I mean, you've talked about it in my classroom a couple of times about how you stay creative, and you gotta try new things.
Yep. And just be willing to, like you said, fail. Just be willing. Exactly. It's not the end of the world. It's just a chance, an opportunity to start over and go in a different direction. Like if you look at it, if you can internalize it and look at failure like that, you'll succeed a lot faster. You really will. That took me a long time to learn.
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah. I would have thought that, no one wants 100%. To fail, but it's kind of important. You ever see that commercial from Whedon and Kennedy with Michael Jordan, where he talks about it's his voice and he's talking about all the numbers of shots that he missed in right. And just all these 23 times I was tasked to take the game-winning shot and missed. And he just lists all this stuff. And it's like, I've done all that and I've failed all those times, but that's why I succeed. That's a great spot. Whedon and Kennedy.
Love it. That's
brilliant. I just interviewed a guy yesterday, Roy Schuler. He's going to be on the podcast. He is and to your love of Nike, he's in a new spot for Nike. He plays. I've seen this commercial. He's Mr. Earl. Have you seen this commercial for the WNBA?
Yes.
Roy Schuler. Yeah. He was. Wow. He's an actor. He was an actor. Is an actor. He's based in Harlem now, but he's it's starting to percolate for him. He's on Law and Order. He's doing background work in SNL sketches. He's on commercials. He's in the show. I think it's something. It might be Godfather of Harlem. Forrest Whitaker. It's a show. He got cast on that. But I was talking to him about this Mr. Earl commercial, and the people from Wieden and Kennedy, they were there. He got to talk to so many people. They shot the commercial. It went crazy. If you've seen it, have you seen the commercial?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great. Awesome. Right. Yeah. So he's going to be on the podcast to talk about that. And I know him because he was in a play with my son. He played Tom Robinson.
That's how you met him.
To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah. And my son Zane was in that show as well. But
that's cool.
Yeah, to your point about Nike, they jumped on an idea of the increased attendance. I mean, this is a perfect example of how you use creativity. They want to talk about the attendance at the WNBA and how amazing it is. So what do? They look at it through the janitor's point of view and how his job now, this isn't what he signed up for. He's got all this extra cleaning that he's got to do. It's just it's brilliant. And then they intersperse the shots of of the girls, the women playing, just well done. So
Absolutely.
let's wrap this up with one last story. I want you to tell me the story of the time that you guarded Kobe Bryant in basketball. Were you playing for? He was Lower Merion, right?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was at Lower Merion. I was at Germantown Academy, which is Philly suburbs, and they came to play at our gym. And he was a senior in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
I was a junior, and I didn't get a ton of playing time, but I got in here and there. And
Mm-hmm.
in that particular game, our gymnasium was in violation of the fire code because of so many people that crammed into that gym to get a glimpse of this guy who was a man among boys, even back
Oh,
then in
right,
high
right.
school.
Yeah,
If you remember,
I do
he
remember
left
that.
high
Yeah.
school to go right to the NBA to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I always tell people, that summer he went to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I got a job at Outback Steakhouse. I was the guy giving out the buzzers to people when they come in looking for a table, and he was going to the NBA. But my uncle got to the gym early, got a seat at center court, and took a pretty cool photograph of me actually defending Kobe Bryant in that game. And I don't think I scored any points, but I think
Mm-hmm.
he had 27 points, which was below his average of 35. But our team lost by 20, so it doesn't really matter. But
I was gonna say.
he was
Mm,
that was just I've never seen anything like that, in the sense that that high school boys basketball team in 1996 for Lower Merion High was basically like a traveling rock band,
mm,
where people were waiting outside of high school locker rooms to get a picture with Kobe or an
yeah,
autograph, even before he had all the success with the Lakers and the gold medals and Olympics and all
yeah,
that stuff.
sure.
It was pretty cool looking back to just have even a few seconds of a moment with a legend like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at his work ethic, I mean, it's insane. But like that was what he knew he needed to do to stay at that level. I mean, everybody'd go home and they'd be out at the clubs, and he'd be in the gym shooting for free throws. Like that's just how he
Yeah,
did it. Yeah. So Ed, I
exactly.
want to thank you for doing this. This has been great. I love talking to you. Any chance I get to spend with you, I come away energized and excited and hopeful for like the future. That good leaders are out there, and you're an example of that. And those people at Colonial Williamsburg, they are very lucky. They don't you're just starting now, and they don't even know, like, but what they got in their midst. They might have an idea, but I think you're going to probably blow their minds in a couple months rather quickly,
Well,
probably.
I appreciate that. I
Because
really
it's
do,
what
and
you do. You're going
and
to
I do
go
wish.
in, you're going to listen, you're going to take it all in. You're just going to do what you need to do. And I want to congratulate you on that position, because I know that that's something that, had been in your wheelhouse for a while, and you finally made it happen. And I'm just really grateful for our friendship. I hope you can appreciate that.
Be
And from the
blessed.
first time I met you, I thought this guy is going to be in my life. I don't know how. I don't know how we're going to make this work, because he's all the way down here in Valley Forge. I'm up in the valley, and we stayed in touch. We stayed in each other's world, and it's fun. I enjoy your company.
Well, I also enjoy the fact that you are consistently one of, if not the best guest speaker in the marketing class I teach. So I'm going to keep having you come back, whether you like it or not.
I have no problem with that. You let me know. Um, so Ed, be well. And stay in touch. And I'm certainly going to be watching what you do down there at Colonial Williamsburg. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me. And I'm happy to do this anytime. It's great to
Absolutely.
see you.
Glad to have you on Yack. Be well, my friend. All right, Yackers. Hope you enjoyed it, because we have many more great conversations planned and guests lined up ready to yak it up. Yack is sponsored and produced by ASR Media. Theme song was written and performed by Dan Ross. Yack is the official podcast of the AAF Greater Lehigh Valley Ad Club. Stay hungry, stay humble. Till next time.
This episode of Yack is rated O for, oh man, that was good.